How's it going? Genie here. Welcome to another video. And welcome to Genie Base Jakku. In this one I'm going to show you how I made a remote base of operations that persists through logins no matter what server I'm on, and explain why I think custom base gameplay is finally viable. I was able to spawn into my base with all vehicles you see here, across multiple shards and even different server regions. My fleet was focused on planetary salvage, but could potentially be customized for any discipline, whether that be combat, mining, rescue, or whatever you're into. I think the 890 is still one of the best ships for this, which makes sense as it's the only player-owned capital ship that can be flown around right now. But that being said, there are definitely plenty of other options out there for a mothership. Just remember, if it fits, it sits. Let's get into it. The basic steps to store a fleet and bring it with you as you move between servers hasn't changed much since bed logouts were first introduced. Basically, as long as all your ships and vehicles are within the boundaries of the physics grid of the ship whose bed you log out from, when you log back in, all ships will load in with you. However, in the past, I think trying this has been more effort than it's worth. Only now are we in a place where the right bug fixes and mechanics have been implemented, and we can really start reliably stowing vehicles and equipment with our characters. I'm going to highlight 5 things that have changed somewhat recently in the persistent universe that I think have finally made living off the grid viable. Hopefully this will help steer you in the right direction when it comes to creating your own portable fleet. Number 1. Persistent Entity Streaming, or PES. PES came with a lot of small changes to how things work that together make a huge difference. First of all, there's no ship limit. In the past, you could only spawn 3 ships or vehicles, and as soon as you spawn the 4th, the first one would despawn. The second part of PES that is huge is that no ships despawn, period. In the past, even if you didn't have more ships than the allowed number out, you still had to do crazy things like keep a player on board or keep dead bodies on board from NPCs just to keep it from despawning, and the reliability of these workarounds was shaky at best. Now, as long as you stay in the same server where you leave the ship, it'll be there when you come back. This makes the setup for a long-term base much easier. Number 2, bed logout saves the ship state, including the landing gear configuration. This one is super important for us Russian doll-style ship nesting enthusiasts. In the past, whenever you logged out in a ship bed, when you logged back in, the ship had its landing gear up and it was back in its default state. This was always a really annoying problem because ships with their gear up had the tendency to bounce through the planet's surface when they loaded in. Also, when you tried to store a ship inside another ship and bed log from the mothership, the nested ship could jostle around and do crazy stuff as it spawns in, potentially breaking physics if its flying configuration made it bigger than the space it originally occupied when it had its gear down. Now when you bed log, joining a server will spawn your ship and all the ships inside it with the gear down right where you left them. Another benefit of the precise ship location being saved is that other people can log out of their ships in close proximity to yours, and when you log in as a party, all your ships will spawn together. In this case, that's how I keep the Nomad with the rest of the fleet. It's attached to somebody else's account, so they just bed log in close proximity to the 890. This brings me to a couple of new limitations when it comes to bed logging. First of all, you can only bed log in your own ship. This is a little annoying for party launching into a base, but it at least means that you have some more ships at your disposal. Another change is that you can't bed log when somebody else is on your ship, or even if somebody else's ships are on your ship. You'll be met with this icon on the cursor when you try and log out. Number 3, 30k protection. While most people saw this as a huge boon for cargo traders and miners, this technology is also super important for pocket carrier lovers. 30k protection introduced a heartbeat where every so often a ship's state was saved. This included everything that was inside the ship, whether that be cargo, FPS equipment, or most importantly for this topic, other ships. This now means that when you're trying to set up your pocket carrier, your base, or just a snub in a cargo hold, if a 30k strikes, the chances are good that your painstaking precision ship or vehicle loading didn't go to waste. In fact, during my setup for this video, I was hit with 2 30ks. Both times my ship-in-ship loading progress was saved. I just had to go and retrieve my mothership from my home landing zone. The most important thing for reliable 30k protection is to make sure that if you get hit with one, that you log out of the game and the launcher and wait 20 to 30 minutes before you try logging in again. This gives the backend a chance to save all your stuff from the last heartbeat and store it at your home landing zone. Number 4, cargo transfer. The new powers granted to us by the cargo refactor allows us to transfer cargo from one ship to another. This is especially useful if you're using a ship as a remote base of operations, as it allows you to periodically return to your private base and offload cargo or loot and continue about your business without worrying about your cargo being vulnerable. Granted, this is assuming that you've picked a very remote spot for your base where no one will find you. This is not too difficult to do in Star Citizen though, which leads me perfectly onto the next one. Number 5. Reliable QT to party member. This one is only really applicable if you're playing with someone or have access to another account that can keep an eye on your base. If you didn't know, a party member essentially creates a custom QT marker. All you have to do is keep the second player near your base and make sure that they don't log out due to inactivity. In my case, I just use a family member's PC when they're not using them to act as my glorified QT beacon. Having a QT marker on your base of operations means that you can keep it in the middle of nowhere, but still have easy access to it. In the past, QTing to a party member was sometimes unreliable and kind of dangerous, especially when you're doing it on a planet or moon. Now it seems like that's fixed, and I had no problems QTing directly to my party member, no matter where they were. There are other arguably better ways to skin this cat, though. Unfortunately, if your QT marker is a comatose, noob suit wearing second account, that essentially idle player is taking up a slot on the server that an active player could be using. If everyone did this, the verse would feel a lot emptier. Having an active player fill the role of base groundskeeper is a better option. It does sound like a boring job, but you could potentially switch out with them every now and then, and maybe you know someone that loves to organize stuff and can create a beautifully organized system of storage crates in your ship for you and your crew. 30k protection grants us some amount of confidence that their work will persist, so that kind of thing feels a little less futile. Or maybe you set your base down in an ore-rich area and your buddy just stays within radar range of the mothership while they go mining or searching through a cave or something. Either way, you get your QT marker as well as a second pair of eyes to spot nefarious activity near your base. Not only that, but your base minder can keep your mothership mobile and reduce the chance of unsavory characters learning its whereabouts. And finally, if you're playing completely solo, you can still manage a base without having a QT marker. All you have to do is position your base or mothership at a point that is only known to you. For example, you start at an outpost, station, or OM point, fly in a certain direction for a certain distance. The distance should be greater than about 30 kilometers, and you should make sure that the direction is infinitely reproducible. What I mean by that is to make sure that your reference point doesn't move in relation to your base location. I haven't actually run into this myself yet, but in Star Citizen, moons and stations and stuff do move, so it's probably worthwhile just testing it out first before you're committed to a base location. I'll be making a follow-on video about planetary salvage and operating out of this base, so keep an eye out for that. I hope you found my observations interesting and some of the tips useful. Like if you liked it, subscribe for more, and until next time.